What's up, guys? Welcome to day three. Welcome to day three of how to get rid of your quarantine belly fat. And we're going to let Facebook warm up here and kind of let you guys know that we're going live, and we're going to get started here in just a second. But for those of you that are watching this replay, today is really, every day is important, but today is actually really important. Whoa. Because we're going to talk about how to know if you have too much visceral fat. And like we discussed before, visceral fat is bad. So just a quick recap while people are joining. And let me click on this. So there we go. So just a quick recap. We talked about, this is day three. So on day one, we talked about, what are the types of fat? And there's two types of fat. There's subcutaneous fat, which is basically the fat just under your skin. And the other type of fat is called visceral fat or active fat. And that fat is found right here inside of your abdominal cavity where all of your organs are. So that was a thing that we talked about on day one. Day two, we talked about why is visceral fat so bad? We talked about a whole bunch of things of why it's bad. We talked about it ends up being kind of this black hole of a problem because visceral fat causes a lot of problems within your organs. So we talked about how visceral fat affects your heart, affects your liver, affects your blood pressure, and all those types of things. So if you haven't seen those two trainings, please go back. I think that's back for you guys. Go back to day one and watch that, and then go to day two and watch that, and then watch this training. They all kind of work together and flow together, and it will be really real helpful for you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to give it just another few seconds here, and we'll get started on today's training of how to tell if you have too much visceral fat. All right, so going to get started here in a second, and yeah, with that, let's roll. So today is really an important thing. Oh, by the way, also, if you're watching this as a replay, comment replay. That way I know it's kind of after the fact, and then any questions or comments that you have, I can go back and answer those questions for you, and maybe make clarifications and stuff like that. Okay, so that actually, when you do that, it helps me help you. So I am going, let's see, it's 3 minutes. So let's get rolling. So we're going to talk about today is there's actually seven things, 7 ways to tell if you have too much visceral fat. So I'm going to pull up my notes, and we're going to go over those right now. So the first one that I want to talk about is, how do I want to roll these out? Let's just talk about some of the obvious ones. First one I want to talk about is abdominal pain. A lot of people have abdominal pain. It's crazy. It's one of the top reasons people actually go to the hospital is for abdominal pain. So one way to know is that if you have abdominal pain on your right side, so you guys are seeing me, I don't know if this is left or right to you. On the camera, it's showing me, it looks like left to me, but this is my right side. And so if you have abdominal pain here on your right side, that can be a very clear indication that you have too much visceral fat. Let me tell you why. On your right side are 2 real important organs. One is your liver, and the other is your kidney. Now, obviously, you've got 2 kidneys, but your right kidney is on the right side along with your liver. Now, usually those 2, there's no space between them, right? So here's the thing. If you have too much visceral fat, what happens is visceral fat starts surrounding your organs. You've got your spleen, you've got your pancreas, you've got your kidneys, you've got your liver. All that stuff is inside of there. And if you have too much visceral fat, you can end up having, there can be your your liver and your kidney, and in between them is fat. And so with all this visceral fat, it starts creating this not enough room in there for all that, right? And that's why your belly starts extending out, and because it's being packed, it's being crowded in there. So the first thing I want to tell you, if you have abdominal pain on your right side, that can be an indication that you have too much visceral fat. Now, because I know a lot of you guys are going to be watching this on replay, if that made sense to you, just type in AP for abdominal pain. AP, just type that in or like. Also, by the way, guys, please participate in this. It's real important for me. Those of you that know me know that I'm super passionate about this, and it's a mission for me to help people. And if you like and comment during this training, Facebook sees that, and then they send it out to other people that can help. So this is a real easy way that you can help. Guys, I take a lot of time to prepare for this to make sure it's valuable for you. So please participate, like, comment, share. You never know whose life that you can help, maybe change, maybe even save. And I've got a little coming up in one of the other bullet points here. I'm going to share a story with you of something that happened just yesterday. Okay, so number one was how to know if you have too much visceral fat. You have pain in your right side in your abdomen. Okay, so let's move on and talk about number two. And number two is pretty crazy because it ends up being this kind of a cycle. And what it is, it's sleep apnea. This is the second way to know if you have too much visceral fat. If you have sleep apnea, now what is sleep apnea? So there's something called like obstructive sleep apnea or OSA. And what that is, some of you know that. You may have heard people snoring and stuff like that. It's a little different than snoring. Sleep apnea is actually when you're sleeping and your airway closes and you don't breathe. You just stop breathing. And then all of a sudden it's like, you just wake up and you're gasping for air. And a lot of times this happens with men, but it's actually not uncommon to happen with women also. And so what happens during that is many times through the night, ultimately, there's been people that go through sleep studies for this stuff, and they find out that, oh, you woke up 50 times last night. So what's crazy about that is sleep apnea can cause you to have too much visceral fat, because if you have sleep apnea, it's kind of this never-ending circle. Sleep apnea, actually, you're not getting enough sleep, and if you don't get enough sleep, you have a lot of cortisol in your body, and that contributes you to getting more visceral fat. And excuse me, if you have too much visceral fat, it causes sleep apnea. Now let's talk about from that point of view. If you have too much visceral fat, what happens is your throat area, your trachea, all of this area here, it's meant to be like this, right? It's open. And so part of it is too much visceral fat ends up being, you can have fat inside of that tube. And then you can also have fat on the outside in the muscle walls. Now, the natural state of this is for your breathing tube to stay open, right? So if you have too much fat in there, there's less air that can get through. And if there's too much fat in the muscle walls, then that it can kind of start this thing. It's not supported and can just shut down. And it's a big problem. And on top of that, too much visceral fat fills your body cavity, also putting more pressure to shut that down. It's pretty crazy. I'll tell you a quick story. I never snored, like ever. I'm like the most peaceful sleeper you'll ever meet. I remember being younger in college and stuff like that, and roommates would be like, dude, I never hear you anything when you sleep. And it's crazy. You always have a smile on your face when you sleep. That's kind of crazy. It cracked me up. But I've always been like that, just a real fall asleep right away, no problem sleeping. And I'll tell you that for sure in my 40s, and this is when I was picking up a bunch of weight, my wife, Laura, would always say, baby, you're snoring. I go, what? I'm not snoring. It got so bad, guys, that I would actually wake myself up because I heard somebody, and I go, baby, quit snoring. And I go like, stop. She goes, you gotta be kidding me. You are snoring and everybody can hear you in the house. So that was me snoring, but it turned into where I would wake up gasping for air, like choking, like, something crazy. And so when I look back, that's when I was at my heaviest, guys. That's when I had a lot of weight. And consequently, right now, I sleep like a baby. Like I never wake up. I don't snore. And so that's a little proof of what happened to me when I was at 240, 245. Guys, I'm 6'3", barefooted. That's a lot of weight for me. And I'm built like a basketball player, long and thin. Now, today, I'm 185 or so, and I don't have that fat. I'm sure I have some visceral fat. That's not unnormal to have some, but I have very little now compared. My waist is like a 33, 34, and I don't snore, and I don't have sleep apnea. So that's number two. Number two of how you can tell if you have too much visceral fat is if you have sleep apnea. And again, it's this kind of weird, never-ending circle that goes around. Too much visceral fat can cause sleep apnea, and sleep apnea can cause too much visceral fat. So remember, if you guys go back and if you've listened to the other two trainings, day 1 and day 2, I talked about this black hole of things, of symptoms that happen that start swirling around and taking you down to where you can reach an event horizon where it's almost impossible to come out of, okay? So, number 1, abdominal pain in your right side can be a sign of too much visceral fat. Number 2, sleep apnea. The circle that it causes, that's number 2. And those are 2 big ones right there. Number 3 that I want to talk about, which was a little kind of crazy when I looked at it, is depression. Now, this is another thing. So there's been a lot of research on this, by the way, and if you have a lot of visceral fat, it can lead to depression. Why? Why is that? Well, something that people don't understand is that fat in and of itself acts a lot like an organism all by itself. It releases hormones, it releases inflammation, and things like that. And those things, in your body can cause you to feel differently. And depression is one of those things. They've done a lot of studies on that. And interestingly enough, depression in and of itself can actually cause you to gain more visceral fat. So there again, there's this little symbiotic relationship with visceral fat, and illnesses. So, if you're dealing with depression, it could be because you have too much visceral fat. And if you're depressed, just know that that's contributing to you having more visceral fat. Guys, in 2016, I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. I was definitely obese and overweight. I lost 2 people in my family. And I was depressed. I had a lot of anxiety, I had a lot of depression, and I had a lot of visceral fat. So, which one is the chicken and the egg? What was causing what? I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that having too much visceral fat made it harder for me to deal with those things the way that I could have. And, I just had a lot of depression and anxiety. So let's do this the European way. That's number 3. So number 1 was abdominal pain in your right side can be a sign that you're carrying too much visceral fat. Number 2 that we talked about was sleep apnea. Sleep apnea can definitely be a sign of too much visceral fat. Number 3, depression, which is very surprisingly, I put this in the list because most people are unaware of this. If you're having a lot of depression and you're like, one sign might be, it's like, man, why am I depressed? Everything seems to be going really well in my life. What's up with that? Could be that you're carrying too much visceral fat. Okay, that's number 3. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4, bad digestion. Let me slow that down. Guys, you heard me use the word the other day that there's a constellation of bad things that can come from visceral fat. I'm going to use another one. bad digestion, there is a litany of things that can be caused by having too much visceral fat as far as digestion goes. Now, some things that you might be thinking, the natural one is acid reflux. Oh, every time I eat, I get this like acid reflux and it burns. And, oh, it just feels so bad. Well, that's definitely one of them. There are so many more, and I want to pull something up real quick because there is a, like I said, there's a litany of these things. Let's see. Just want to read off some of those that, for sure, I mentioned acid reflux. Okay. Acid reflux is like one of the first ones. And then there's also Barrett's esophagus, esophageal cancer, colon polyps. And I'm reading these guys because all these are actually related to bad digestion. And you may have some of these and may not think that it's actually linked to bad digestion. So we have that cancer. We have colon polyps, colon cancer, as well as gallstones, cholangiocarcinoma, pancreatic cancer. These are all things. And so, guys, this is number 4. And reason I'm telling you this is I hope you're kind of catching this, that there's actually a lot of things that are going on. And so what you'll start to understand is almost anything that's out of whack in your body can actually be traced back to having too much visceral fat. So that was number 4 in what we're talking about. So we talked about abdominal pain on the right side. We talked about sleep apnea. We talked about depression and bad digestion. Okay. I don't know why I like to say digestion, but bad digestion, potato, tomato, you call it whatever you're feeling. I just kind of like digestion. It kind of flows out a little quicker. So that's number 4. Number 5. Number 5 is real important, and I wanted to share this with you. Number 5 is high blood pressure. Now, yesterday when we talked about why visceral fat was bad in part 2 of this training, we talked about high blood pressure, and basically what happens is that in your arteries, you start getting plaque and it starts building it up, and that artery wall, which is, again, another, there's these little pipes in your body that carry the blood. You guys know this, but when you have too much cholesterol and fat in your bloodstream, it causes plaque, and that plaque starts making those artery walls thinner and thinner. Well, guess what happens? The heart has to pump harder, and there's more pressure inside of there, causing high blood pressure. Now, that's not the only thing that causes high blood pressure. I want to be clear on that. There's things like genetics, and there's a lot of other things that contribute to that. But high blood pressure is a really good sign that you might be carrying too much visceral fat. And I want to, right now, a quick timeout for you guys. So yesterday, talking to a friend, and we were having a conversation about health and things like that. And he said, yeah, man, hey, my brother, we were doing something, and then they tested their blood pressure. His blood pressure was way too high. It was actually at an acute situation, what I call a 911 situation. At least the reading that he shared with me, which was like, 230 over 190. Guys, that's bad. And the only reason I'm telling you this is that if you haven't done so, please check your blood pressure ASAP. A lot of places have it. Grocery stores have it. I think even like CVS's have it here in Texas. HEBs have them where you can actually sit down, put your arm in the sleeve, right? Sit down, and it'll track it for you. And then you can have it sent to your email. So critical, guys. Blood pressure, if you don't know, is known as the silent killer. So thankfully, here's the good news to this story. My friend went, I said, dude, stop what you're doing, get your wife, go to the emergency room right now. And the good news to the end of the story is he actually did that. And we FaceTimed when he got to the hospital. He said, I'm here. I'm like, good, man. That's awesome. And he ended up, ended up checking his blood pressure and sugar levels and gave him medication to take care of that, at least for now, until he gets to the doctor. This is so important. So this is my message to you. If you don't know what your blood pressure is right now, if you haven't checked it in weeks, months, years, get on that today. This is a very serious situation, okay? So I'm going to stop there, but that's number 5. That's number 5 of an indication that you may have too much visceral fat, okay? So we talked about those things. Let's see, we're going to talk about now. And by the way, guys, this is crazy. I can't see any comments. Like at all. And I'm going to look at my Facebook over here. I'm going to take a real quick break just to see if you guys have any comments. If not, I'm not going to worry about that. If you have a question, drop it in the comments. By the way, of the things that I talked about so far, I want you to, if there's something that stuck out to you that maybe you didn't know, put it in the comments. If it's whatever it is, if it was number 1, if it was number 2, number 3, or you can just talk about them. If it was high blood pressure, if it was sleep apnea, just put sleep apnea in there. If it was what I just talked about, any of those things that I talked about, if it made sense to you, or you have a question about it or a comment, just drop it in the comments, and I'll be sure to respond to that or reach out to you, whichever one is there. So. Let's see, give me 1 second here. Okay, so I'm not seeing any comments. I do see there's 3 of you or 3 or more on this call right now, so on this training. So again, just participate. So let's go back to what we're talking about. So we talked about abdominal pain, we talked about sleep apnea, we talked about blood pressure, we talked about depression, we talked about bad digestion. So that is 5. And the next one that I want to talk about, guys, is I want to talk about low energy. Oh, wow. I just got a message. You guys can't hear me. Somebody said it might be their phone. So can you guys comment if you can hear me? Just drop a comment in the messages that if you can hear me, because somebody just said that they cannot. Anybody in the comment section. Okay, I can hear myself. So on the live, even though it's delayed. Okay, so let's move on. So we talked about 5 of them so far. Let's get to the other one now. Obesity. Guys, this is a big one. Again, I hope that what you're catching is that everything kind of goes together. And if there's anything that you're feeling like that's out of whack, it could be because you have too much visceral fat. So obesity, what is obesity? Obesity is basically, it's a clear sign that you have too much visceral fat, because we talked about the 2 types of fat, subcutaneous, which is under your skin, and then the other one, which is the visceral fat, which we keep talking about, which is the dangerous fat. So with that, what ends up happening with obesity, it kind of crowds your insides that we talked about, surrounds all of your organs, crowds them, and then causes a lot of other problems that we talked about with your heart, with your liver, inside of your blood with too much plaque and stuff like that. All of these things are caused it, but obesity is a very clear sign. So that's number 6. And what I want to do now, I want to see if there's any questions. If you have any questions or comments, please drop that in the comment section. If not, I am going to drum roll and share with you 2 ways. So we've talked about the 6 ways. The 7th thing that I'm going to do is the bonuses, right? There's 2 ways that you can check right now to determine if you have too much visceral fat, okay? The first one that I want to tell you about is going to take a little bit of work for you, but you can get this like this, and it will take you, I promise you, maybe 60 seconds to do it, okay? And that thing is, check your BMI. What is your BMI? Your BMI is a measurement that takes into account your height and weight and determines where you are. If your weight is ideal, if you're lean, if you're overweight, or if you have obesity. And so when you check your BMI, if your number comes back at 30 or more, then that is a sign of obesity. Now, my BMI used to be 30. Right there at 30 is kind of like if it's less than 30, you're overweight. If you're 30 or above, you're definitely obese. And I was right at 30. So I was obese. And so that's a real quick way. And what you can do, just Google BMI calculator. And when you do that, it'll pull up, you'll enter your height, your weight, hit go, it'll kick out a number. And there's even a graph that you can look at that sees where that is. Now, I'm going to tell you that back in the day, I used to think that the BMI was a bunch of crap. I used to think it was junk. Like, nah, man, I'm big, I've got muscles, and it doesn't really work for me. Even if you're, lean and a super big, muscled up guy, I will still say that carrying too much weight puts extra strain on your heart. Your heart actually has to pump that, even if you're lean. If you're not lean, it's obviously a pretty accurate thing. But I can tell you now, doing what I do as a profession, that your BMI is over 30, that's obese, and that's not good, and that's a real wake-up call, okay? So that's the first thing. Now, if you do that, or when you do that, I want you to put in there, I did my BMI, or put in BMI so you know what that number is, okay? It's real quick, takes 60 seconds or less to know if you're obese or not, and that will tell you if it comes out obese. Even if it's high on the overweight, it's probably a pretty good indication that you're carrying too much visceral fat, okay? That's actually bonus number one. Now, bonus number two, there's a little tricky thing here, right? So there's another very easy way, and I'm going to tell you, it's going to sound really simple, but it's actually one of the tools that I use all the time. In my own journey, it is the only thing that I use to measure, to determine my goal. Am I on point? Am I tracking on the goal that I have? You guys ready for this? Drum roll. You ready? Let me get it ready for you. Get it ready for you. Okay. Enough of that. Watch this. Here's what it is. You're going to go, if you don't have one of these in the house already, I'll show you how to do it. All you need is one of these. Let me show you how to work one of these, okay? So here it is. This is the reveal that I use all the time, and I use it every day on my journey. I take a tape measure, and you're going to measure your waist. You're going to measure your waist, okay? Now, let me show you what you're not going to do, okay? So what you're not going to do, sorry, I'm sweating over here, but what you're not going to do is I'll just tell you, don't measure underneath your belly, okay? Now, back in the day, I used to say, oh yeah, my waist is about a 36. Meanwhile, my stomach is hanging way past like a muffin top. Like this thing was way past that. And I always say, well, I fit in 36s, but no, when I measured the way I'm going to tell you right now, my waist was actually a 42. Probably more than that, but I always try to underplay it. So what you're going to do, you're going to measure around the fattest part of your stomach, right? You're going to measure around your love handles, if you have them. And what I like to use is the belly button as the target, right? So if you start off around, you guys can see, yeah, here you go. You start off around your belly button. My belly button is right here. And make sure it's horizontal around your love handles, if you have any, right? Stand tall and then relax. Take a breath. You're not going to stick your stomach out. You're not going to suck it in. You're just going to be relaxed. Take a breath. Relax. Measure it. Right on the belly button. And so right now mine is showing a 34. This is where I want you to measure it. And you know, so it's a 34. So if this is, here's how you know, okay? I mean, there's two things you need to know. One is for women, and the other one is for guys. Ladies, if your midsection, around your belly button, around the fattest part, is over 35, it's a very clear indication that you're carrying too much visceral fat, okay? Ladies, if it's over a 35 inches, it's a real good indication that you're carrying too much visceral fat, okay? Now I know some of that is outside subcutaneous fat, you know, fat that you can pinch. That's already taken into account. So if your waist is over 35, you're carrying too much visceral fat. Guys, if your waist is over 40, if it's over 40, you're carrying too much visceral fat, okay? Mine was 42 inches. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So why am I saying that? There's been many studies that show this. There's somebody that's on the program whose wife is a physician. And she's always said this, that if your waist is over 40, it's a very clear indication that you have a lot of bad things going on inside your body. And if you don't have them now, you will, because it means you have too much visceral fat. And again, previous videos talked about why that's so bad. Actually, part 2 of 5 talked about that. So there you have it. If you want to know if you have too much visceral fat, go look up what your BMI is, and then also measure your waist. And when you measure your waist, ladies, if it's over 35, it's too much visceral fat. Guys, if it's over 40, too much visceral fat. Okay, and you can look that up. You can look that up online to see that, to back up what I'm saying. So with that, guys, it's been 30 minutes. Man, I like to talk. It's crazy. So let's review, and then we're going to peel out of here. So I talked about a bunch of things, and we talked about basically six ways to tell if you're carrying too much visceral fat, and 2 bonuses to actually measure that to know right now in 60 seconds or less if you have too much visceral fat, okay? Oh, also, one other thing. If you don't have this, if you have one of the metal ones, and then you push the button and it snaps back, that's okay. You can still do it. The way you do it is just get a thin piece of rope or a string, wrap it around. You can even use, if you don't have it, use a computer cord or extension cord, anything like that, and then measure it against that metal measuring tape. That's another way to do it, okay? That way you don't have to go outside and battle the people with the mask and the cord. You can just do it right at your home. So less than 60 seconds or less, you will know if you're carrying too much visceral fat. So let's review those, and let's take off. So the first one was abdominal pain. If you have abdominal pain on your right side, could be a clear indication that you're carrying too much visceral fat. Second one, if you have sleep apnea, and I want to even add in there if you snore. So sleep apnea and snoring, if you have that, could be a good indication that you're carrying too much visceral fat. Number 3, depression. If you have depression, could be a sign, hormones out of whack, right? And you're carrying too much visceral fat. Number 4, bad digestion. Bad digestion. If you have bad digestion all the time, that's not a good sign. And there's a litany of things that could be that having too much visceral fat can cause as far as bad digestion. Okay, we talked about that. Number 5 was high blood pressure. If you have high blood pressure, that's a clear sign. Guys, I had high blood pressure. It started getting worse and worse and worse. And again, all these things that I'm talking about, I had I didn't really have the actually I did have abdominal pain. And also, let me tell you, if you have pain on your right side, it could radiate to your back as well. So if you're having that kind of pain, that could be abdominal pain that's showing up, radiating to your back. So, all of these things are things that I had and dealt with. And then we talked about high blood pressure as the sixth one. As the fifth one, and the sixth one was obesity. Okay, those are the things. Thank you, baby. Laura, appreciate you, girl. So that's one of the people commenting. So that's awesome. Thanks for that. I feel it's great info. So guys, take this. These are tools that you can know right now, today, if you're carrying too much visceral fat. Why is that important? It's important because you have a family. You might be married, you've got kids. Guys, this is so important. Once you know this, if you face it and you know, wow, I've got too much visceral fat, you know that's the first part. Then you know, hey, what can I do about this, okay? And the two tests were BMI, check your BMI, and then use the magic of the measuring tape. Measure your waist. Don't cheat, measure under your stomach. No. Measure the fattest part, relax. Don't stick it out, don't suck it in, just relax. Just relax and measure it. Ladies, if your waist is over a 35, pretty good sign you have too much visceral fat. Finally, guys, if your waist is over 40 inches, really good sign you have too much visceral fat. The question I want you to visit with yourself is, what are you going to do about that, if anything? Is it just going to continue to be, life as usual? Or looking forward, is there something that you need to do about this? Do you believe this is serious enough that you need to start addressing it? Because I can tell you, I wish, guys, look at me, guys and girls, look at me. I wish that I would have acted on information. I wish I would have acted on family members talking to me before I had my heart attack. Okay, thank God I'm okay now, but I had a heart attack and I did something about it. So I want to encourage you, go through the trainings. If you haven't seen them all, go back is this way. Go back to part 1 and watch it, go back to part 2 and watch it, you can go back to this and watch it again. Part 1 is what are the types of fats? Part 2 was why is it bad? This part is how to tell if you have too much visceral fat. Now, looking forward to tomorrow, we're going to talk about the mistakes that people make when they're trying to lose weight, when they're trying to lose fat. There's a bunch of mistakes and things that I see. We're going to talk about that tomorrow in detail. So with that, this is getting so long, and we're going to cut it right here. But guys, if you're watching a replay, put replay. If you've gotten value out of this, like it, comment, share. Again, this is not about me. This is about you and about helping other people that can use this information. So don't be shy, man. Share it. If you find value in this, share it with somebody. Say, watch this. You never know. You can save somebody's life, and hopefully it can be yours or somebody else's. Okay. So with that, I think I've covered everything. Tomorrow is going to be the most common mistakes people make when trying to lose fat. And we'll talk about that then. So with that, if you have any questions, reach out. Again, comment, like, share, and I'll talk to you guys later. All right. Have an awesome day. Peace and stay easy.